a secret advantage the rich have that almost nobody talks about. Not because they're trying to hide it, but because most people wouldn't understand it even if it were explained to them. It's not money, it's not luck, it's not intelligence, it's not connections, it's not being born into the right family or having the right timing. The real advantage rich people have is something far deeper, far more powerful, far more foundational. An internal operating system that unlocks opportunities the average person walks past without noticing. A mental framework that rewires the way they approach time, risk, value, effort, relationships, and decision-making. This advantage shapes their perception of the world, allowing them to see financial possibilities where others see obstacles, to move strategically while others react emotionally, to compound their efforts while others burn out, and ultimately, to build wealth while others chase it endlessly. And once you understand this advantage, truly understand it, you'll never see money the same way again. Most people grow up believing wealth is external, something outside of them, something they chase, something they hope to find, something that happens to them. They believe wealth is the result of circumstance, upbringing, luck, opportunity, or privilege. But the truly wealthy know something completely different. Wealth is internal. It is built from the inside out, not the outside in. It begins with thinking, not with earning. It grows from discipline, not from desire. It roots itself in identity long before it appears in a bank account. And most importantly, it becomes available the moment you adopt the same internal framework the wealthy use. That framework is the secret advantage. To understand this advantage, you have to unlearn nearly everything society has conditioned you to believe. Society teaches you to be a consumer. The wealthy learn to be creators. Society teaches you to fear risk. The wealthy learn to analyze it. Society teaches you to chase comfort. The wealthy learn to harness discomfort for growth. Society teaches you to trade time for money. The wealthy learn to make money work for them. Society teaches you to rely on one income. The wealthy build multiple. Society teaches you to seek approval. The wealthy seek leverage. Society teaches you to avoid failure. The wealthy embrace it as a tool. Society teaches you to focus on today. The wealthy focus on decades. Society teaches you to obey. The wealthy learn to direct their own life. This difference in conditioning is the root of everything. You were trained to follow rules. They were trained to question them. You were trained to avoid losing. They were trained to explore. You were trained to fit in. They were trained to figure out. You were trained to wait. They were trained to execute. You were trained to want security. They were trained to create it. The divergence doesn't happen later in life. It begins early. Their advantage begins with exposure. Exposure to conversations about money, investing, property, discipline, leverage, and ownership. Exposure to people who think big. Exposure to environments that reward experimentation. Exposure to mistakes that teach lessons. Exposure to strategies that compound. Exposure to systems that generate wealth. And even if they weren't born into wealth, they eventually seek out these spaces. They understand that proximity determines perspective, and perspective determines wealth. But let's go deeper, far deeper. The real advantage the rich have is how they relate to time. Time is the currency that determines your entire financial trajectory. Poor people spend time. Middle-class people trade time. Rich people multiply time. They see time as an asset to be protected, invested, and expanded. They know that the biggest enemy of wealth is urgency. They don't rush decisions just to soothe anxiety. They don't chase fast outcomes that feel productive but lead nowhere. They understand the compounding effect of time, not just compounding money, but compounding skills, compounding relationships, compounding habits, compounding choices, compounding reputation. They know that wealth is a long game with exponential output and that the early stages always feel slow, quiet, unseen, unvalidated, and unrewarding. But that's exactly why most people quit too early. They operate with a short-term mindset, sabotaging long-term results. And while we're talking about sabotage, here's another piece of the secret advantage. Rich people understand their own psychology. They understand that emotion is the enemy of wealth. They understand that fear, insecurity, impatience, ego, impulsivity, and comparison destroy more wealth than bad investments ever could. They learn to control their emotions because they understand that money amplifies who you are. It doesn't fix what's broken. Most people stay broke not because of lack of opportunity, but because their emotions override strategy. They chase trends. They buy impulsively. They panic sell. They procrastinate. They self-sabotage. They associate success with external validation instead of internal fulfillment. They're constantly reacting instead of building. But wealthy individuals train their emotional discipline like a muscle. They separate feeling from action. They learn to make decisions based on principles, not pressure. They know that calm minds build wealth. Chaotic minds destroy it. Another dimension of this advantage, and perhaps the most misunderstood, is their relationship with risk. Poor people avoid risk because they fear losing. Rich people analyze risk because they fear standing still. They understand that risk is not something to escape, it's something to navigate. They don't gamble blindly, but they evaluate opportunities through a long-term lens. They understand that the only true risk is remaining in the same place for too long. They take small risks early so they can take bigger, calculated risks later. Meanwhile, most people wait until they're older, more tired, more overwhelmed, more constrained, then feel trapped when they finally face the reality they avoided for so long. Wealthy people see risk as the price of admission into the world of freedom. They know that growth demands discomfort and discomfort demands courage. But the richest form of this advantage is their mastery of leverage. Leverage is the multiplier that creates exponential outcomes. The average person works with effort. The wealthy work with leverage. They leverage money, capital, people, teams, delegation, skills, specialized knowledge, systems, automations and processes, assets, businesses, real estate, intellectual property, technology, AI, software, digital tools, networks, relationships that open doors. This is why people who work hard stay exhausted, while people who build leverage become free. Hard work alone cannot make you wealthy, but leverage work can. Leverage is how one decision can change the next 30 years of your life. Leverage is how you escape the trap of trading time for money. Leverage is how you transform hours into outcomes. Most people are exhausted because they're using effort instead of leverage. Wealthy people are strategic because they rely on leverage instead of effort. This is not intelligence, it is perspective. And here's where the secret deepens. Wealthy people don't focus on income, they focus on ownership. Income feeds you, ownership frees you. Income gets taxed, ownership gets rewarded. Income disappears when you stop working. Ownership pays you forever. School teaches you how to earn. The wealthy teach their children how to own. Society teaches you how to apply for jobs. Wealthy families teach how to acquire assets. And this single difference shapes generations. You do not build wealth by earning more. You build wealth by owning more. Owning businesses, owning real estate, owning intellectual property, owning environments, owning systems, owning your time. This is the core of the secret advantage. Ownership is the engine of liberation. But possibly the deepest layer, the part most people will struggle to accept, is this. Wealthy people have a completely different identity. They see themselves as creators, builders, innovators, strategists, leaders. Their identity shapes their behavior. Their behavior shapes their habits. Their habits shape their future. Most people see themselves as workers, reactors, survivors. They believe wealth is for others. They believe opportunity isn't meant for them. They believe life is something that happens to them. They believe they are limited because that's all they've ever known. But the wealthy understand that identity precedes outcome. They upgrade their identity first, then the results follow. They step into the version of themselves that aligns with the life they want long before the evidence appears. And eventually, reality bends to match the belief. So now the question becomes, how do you get this advantage? How do you break into this world if you weren't born into it, weren't trained for it, weren't surrounded by it? You get the advantage by rebuilding your entire approach to life, systematically, intentionally, relentlessly, until you think like wealth before you ever hold wealth. You get the advantage by learning the rules of money, the psychology of compounding, the structure of opportunity, the frameworks of investing, the strategies of ownership. You get the advantage by valuing time over comfort, clarity over chaos, discipline over impulse, creation over consumption. You get the advantage by building skills that increase your value, not just your income. You get the advantage by surrounding yourself with people who want more, expect more, build more, and refuse to settle for average. You get the advantage by shifting your inner narrative from I hope to I build, from I can't to I learn, from someday to today. You get the advantage by becoming the kind of person wealth gravitates toward. Because the real secret is this: rich people are not playing a different game. They're just playing the same game with different rules. Rules anyone can learn. Rules anyone can adopt. Rules that don't depend on where you were born, who you know, or how much money you currently have. They depend on decisions. They depend on discipline. They depend on identity. They depend on how you use your time, how you manage your emotions, how you seek opportunity, how you respond to setbacks, how you control your environment, and how you define what you're willing to become. And once you step into that way of thinking, once you adopt their frameworks, once you internalize their principles, once you master their psychology, once you use time, leverage, identity, and ownership the way they do, you stop being part of the group that wonders how the rich do it and start being part of the group that already knows. Because the advantage was never about money, it was about the mindset that creates it.